Hey folks, welcome to the March 18, 2025 SIG Windows community meeting. This is a recorded meeting which will be uploaded to YouTube. Please adhere to the CNCF Code of Conduct, which basically translates to be nice and kind to everyone. Right, so announcements. Code freeze is Thursday, 7 p.m. Pacific time. So if any outstanding PRs are there, now's the time to start making sure that they get merged. I suggest not waiting until Thursday. We've had issues when we wait until the last minute to get things approved and reviewed. All right, I'll give a few minutes for new contributors, but I don't see anyone that I haven't seen before. So I think we can move on to the agenda. All right, so WinDSR and WinOverlay to beta status. I'm not
Yeah,
sure
I,
who
I
added this.
added these. I don't think the author of these pull requests are here. So got a new contributor from Microsoft who wanted to take this up, and there's two pull requests. One is to run to add some unit tests for that were described in the KEP, and then the next one is to actually bump the feature gates to beta. So there's that. I think took a look and the unit tests look okay. I think we're just waiting on approval for those, but I just wanted to call that out.
Okay.
And then the withdrawing the host network support on Windows, that PR merged this yesterday, so that's good too. So then for both of these, assuming that both of those merge, we'll just need docs PRs, which there are placeholders open.
Okay, this is not for WinDSR, right? You're talking about the host network that we're dropping support for.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's the host network. I didn't include that here because that PR already merged, so
Okay,
that's
sounds good.
yeah.
So Mark, so these two PRs, you just want reviews or you are,
Yeah, I think these need just approvals now. This one is what we'll hold until the unit tests merge because that was a requirement to go to beta. I think yeah, extra reviews wouldn't hurt, but we just need some approvals now. So I'll try
okay.
and ping some of the folks again today.
Interesting that even though you gave the okay to test label, oh, it is okay to test, okay.
Mhm.
All right, so I'll also take a look today.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay. Um, Unit test updates. I guess this is also you, Mark?
Yeah, I added this too. So as of late last week, we've started running the Windows unit tests on on the PR job on all of the kubelet PRs. I think eventually we want to run that on all code PRs, but we wanted to just see how capacity and costs were for running that because it does use kind of a heavy SKU. And unfortunately, last week we had just missed it. Would have caught a regression for another feature, but the pull request jobs that are like it merged like right after the the kubelet pull request merged right before we had tested it. But we did catch it pretty quickly, and the authors of the node features kind of were super helpful to get that fixed up. So that was good. So I think there is definitely going to be value moving forward to running this on all PRs. Second thing I wanted to mention was thanks to some pointers from Ben, we've got it so that that test grid tab actually loads now instead of spinning for about 10 minutes and then sometimes deciding to load. So that was just there's a tool called prune JUnit XML that's checked into the Kubernetes repository. We're running that on the JUnit files that come out, which test grid loads or tries to parse, so now it's much quicker. Yeah, and then I think the last update was that there's a doc on how to progress the periodic jobs to release blocking, and part of that journey is going through the release and forming jobs. And I started that process by starting a mail thread for on KDev and the SIG release. I'll try and link to that here too to get a discussion going to have the release team take a look at this, especially closer to the release. I do see a couple of flakes that I don't remember seeing before, so I think we'll want to try and figure out what's going on with those. But I think hopefully I don't see any real concerns with progressing it to release informing. So we just need to smooth out that signal. Yep, I just want to give some updates.
This release almost looks like the release of us getting actual end-to-end unit testing happening on PRs consistently for Windows. So yeah, this is great actually. Something we've
Yeah, and
needed
I've
for a long
seen
time.
more work coming in or still some work being done for the EDE node test too, which will be awesome. I think we're really kind of increasing the surface area of all of our testing.
Yeah, I mean, this is invaluable because we've had so many situations where something merges, it breaks Windows, and we don't even know about it until somebody actually tries to use some feature that, you know, then we realize, oh, this has been broken for like a week now. So awesome. Thank you, folks. Any questions for Mark on the unit test updates?
Actually, yeah. Good morning, guys. I have a question, a confirming question. So unit testing is happening for all the PRs that are raised against kubelet.
Yeah, I think that there's two things. One is if it touches any file that matches like underscore Windows
Hmm.
star. So if it touches a Windows only file, either a code file or a test file, or any file that touches anything under PKG kubelet, the pull request job will be triggered automatically. You can trigger it in any pull request in Kubernetes as well with
Got it.
/test, and then I think it's CI Kubernetes pull Windows master. Yeah, so that should run. That is just going to be optional, so it's not a required check, but
Hmm.
I think folks are usually pretty good at like at least checking any failed tests that ran against a PR that's not required and kind of confirming if it is related or not.
Sounds good. And another question, when we have like embargoed CVs, for those PRs as well, the private PRs, these tests can run, right?
No.
Yep. No. So this is another conversation that I know has been happening in the security response committee for a while, but any fixes that go into like in the embargo, any fixes that are for any pull requests that are for an embargoed fix go into a different org.
Hmm.
And that org unfortunately does not have a prow cluster set up to run all of these jobs. This was discussed at the last KubeCon, the maintainer summit too. There's there's kind of a lot of discussions around this. Both I know I've definitely asked for that to happen, and I see
Hmm.
James shaking his head, and Arvind as well, because doing the validation for the security fixes across all of the supported branches and stuff is very time consuming. Um, I know a number of people have voiced like their concerns with that, and it just makes it harder to test. These tests will run on the pull request from that embargoed Kubernetes org into to get it like into a master, but yeah, I
Okay.
mean that's sometimes too late too. If you ever like want to run them and can't figure out how to run them, definitely reach out. The unit tests on Windows, assuming you have a Windows machine, are pretty easy to run. Easier
Hmm.
than getting the ED test set up, I think. And I do,
Yeah.
James, you have your hand raised. Was it related to this?
Yeah, I wanted to add a little bit more context around why we were running it just against kubelet in the Windows files. So we have a sub that has Azure Windows VMs in them, and that's shared across anything that needs to test against Azure for the CNCF. And so that and it has a spending limit on it. And so initially we wanted to make sure that this didn't run that budget out, running on
Hmm.
every single test. And we made the decision to do that against kubelet and Windows files since something like the API server doesn't really run on Windows anyways. And so if something breaks in the unit test there, and we'll catch it in the CI signal, which we do run the entire suite. We could fix it as a follow-up, kind of like post-submit type thing. So that's kind of the reasoning behind there. So
Got it. Thanks. I think for now, yeah, all my questions are answered. So thank you, guys.
Yep, awesome. Yeah, and I mean, you know where to reach us if you ever have more questions too.
Sure. Thank you.
All right. The next topic is kubectl debug node support. I'm not sure who dropped this in. Is that you, Ritika?
Yeah,
if you're speaking, we can't
I
hear
see
you.
you talking, but I don't hear you.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right. Yeah, I can bring this up. I've been wanting to get this in for a while now, so hopefully it works. I just wanted to present on what the thought process was, what the changes were that occurred to allow that, and get the whole group's feedback, so I can move this to actual PR. So Windows Debug has a concept called profiles, which lets you have a sysadmin profile or a network configured profile, and this is all Linux specific. So the most straightforward way that I thought it makes sense is to have a Windows profile and have HPC containers set security context in there. So in the code, you're going to see security context is getting set. It has a set privileged Windows on OS at line number 347, and then that function actually sets host process as true, and it also sets NT authority as this username. So James has already looked at it and he's left some great comments. I've also gone in and added a check right now, James. So the Windows profile only will work on Windows nodes when you pass it a Windows node. If you try to pass it a Linux node, it errors out saying like, hey, I cannot run this on a Linux node. Yeah, does that make sense?
yeah.
Okay, and Windows HPC debug, that thing can only support node debugging. We don't support ephemeral containers. We don't support and debugging pods. So that's another thing to be aware of.
I think this looks good. I don't have any questions about this. I did have a question. Which container image are we going to use? I know that
So I don't set a container image in this. Arvind, if you can go to the PR, I'll show you what example usage looks like. The conversation.
Sorry, my
So
network is pretty slow today, so it takes a
You're
while.
fine. It's okay. Yeah, so example usage, right up there. So it has a kubectl debug. If you scroll further up, you're gonna see you can use it with a host process container. Mansi has been kind enough to help me test all of it out because I no longer have access to Windows nodes because Oracle doesn't support Windows nodes. So she's been testing everything on OpenShift clusters. And she tested it for host process based container image. She's tested it for nano server. It works. So you can use different Windows images of various flavors if you'd want to as a debugging entry point. Yes, James.
What do they default an image for Linux? Can we default an image for Windows?
Sure.
And what happens when you pass like a Linux image to Windows?
Good questions. I'll test them out. I haven't tested those edge cases.
Sure.
So yeah, I'll test those out and report back.
Yeah, and I think James, the comment that you have added for multiple containers, I think we did a very basic test as of now. So we only deployed one container. So we probably did not run into what you pointed out. But we'll have to take that into account.
Cool. Yeah, it's great to see this finally land or get some progress.
Yeah, so this is basically to do kubectl for debugging nodes, right? Not for pods yet.
Yeah, and from what I understand, you could probably not debug pods on Windows. Okay, yeah. So this is kind of what kubectl debug can support for Windows.
I see. Is there like what's the restriction? Like what's the limitation with doing pod debugging on Windows? Just remind me, folks. I think I've run into this before, but now I don't remember.
Or go ahead, James.
Yeah, so I like the way they're doing that with Linux is I believe they're like sharing the namespace of the PID, and there's no way to necessarily do that with Windows. So you get a separate silo per container, and there's no way to like join a silo that I'm
Oh
aware
yeah,
of.
the job object. You can't
Mhm.
basically add something to a job object, I think,
You
after.
you can add something to a job object.
Okay.
But I don't think you can add something to the silo. I don't know. I remember having a conversation with Kevin a long time ago about this, and he gave me an explanation. Maybe since we've done some of this HPC work, we have a new approach that we could potentially like use. But yeah, that's my understanding is that like you can't like attach yourself and kind of get into the silo.
And this is the same case, even if whenever we decide to support like Hyper-V containers, same restriction will be present there.
That one might actually be different
Yeah, we might be able to
because
schedule it inside of the UVM
Yeah.
and control where that is. I don't.
exactly.
Okay. No, just wanting to know for my information. Yeah, but in
Yeah, I
general,
think that the different profiles just schedule a container and then do like an NS enter for, I think even for like the file system, you need to like kubectl debug, you need to give a special. I think if you do a node debug, then it just schedules a container and does an NS enter for things. And it depending on if you target a pod or the node, it does different behaviors. But on Windows, I think we just do the HPC and hope that everything that you need to get is with that.
no, that sounds good. I think this approach seems, seems viable, Ritika. I don't see any red flags, at least taking a quick look at it. Yeah, the key
Sounds
was, I
good.
think, what you've already done, right? You're allowing us to specify a container image. But like James said, we might want to think about, is there some sane default that we can use if, something is not specified?
Sure, I'll run some tests locally to see how Linux behaves, and then I'll
Okay.
infer things, and we'll try to do the same for Windows.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that sounds good.
I was wondering like if you point kubectl node debug at a Windows node, what happens? I'm not actually sure.
Currently,
I don't.
yeah, Mansi, you want to chime in? Because she's tested all of it.
Yeah, it just exists. It doesn't do anything, just exits.
Oh, so no error, nothing. It just silently exits at the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that might improving that error message and just kind of like making that whole experience better for the end user would probably be a good.
Wait a second. Your question was kubectl debug and try a Windows node. So currently it exists, but we're fixing that. So now when you do a kubectl debug Windows node, it will give you if you pass it a -it, it will give you an interactive terminal shell where you can actually access the host files and stuff like that.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
All right, thank you, everyone. So I'll take your feedback and go in and test all of those out and bring this up again next week. And if all looks good, we can try to move forward and get this in.
Yeah, the other group involved here is SIG CLI, so we probably just need to bring it up at one of their meetings as well.
I'm hoping to go there tomorrow. They do one tomorrow at 9 a.m. So I'll get their approvals.
I wouldn't be surprised if this wouldn't make it into this release just because code freezes this week. But I imagine SIG CLI would be super happy to take this on, to take this in.
I agree. Yeah, I'm not going with the mentality to get it in this release. It's fine. We can get it in next release. That works.
Yeah, great work. I think we've kind of envisioned doing this ever since we had HPCs, and I think we had like James's solution with the crew plugin has been super helpful, but having it kind of built into kubectl is going to have much wider reach.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, that's great work, Ritika and Mansi. Thanks for doing this.
Yeah.
So there are no other agenda items. If there's nothing else, we can bring the meeting to a close, and I'll catch up with everybody on Slack. All right. Bye,
So-
folks.
Bye.
Thanks.
Right. Thank you.